You're listening to Gift Biz Unwrapped, episode 75.
Whenever we're doing something new, it's scary. And whenever something's scary, we have resistance to it.
Hi, this is John Lee Dumas of Entrepreneurs on Fire, and you're listening to Gift Biz Unwrapped. And now it's time to light it up.
Welcome to Gift Biz Unwrapped, your source for industry-specific insights and advice to develop and grow your business. And now, here's your host, Sue Monheit.
Hi there, I'm Sue, and welcome back to the Gift Biz Unwrapped podcast. Whether you own a brick and mortar shop, sell online, or are just getting started, you'll discover new insight to gain traction and to grow your business. And today, I am thrilled to have joining us John Lee Dumas. John is the founder and host of EOFire, an award-winning podcast where he interviews today's most successful entrepreneurs 7 days a week. JLD has interviewed over 1,200 entrepreneurs, and EOFire generates over 1 million, yes, I said 1 million monthly listens. John's latest project is the Freedom Journal. It's a gorgeous leather-bound journal that guides you in accomplishing your number one goal in 100 days. Launched on Kickstarter, it raised $453,000 in just 33 days and became the 6th most funded publishing project of all time. You can learn more at thefreedomjournal.com, and you can also learn more right now because that is what we are going to be talking about today. John, thank you so much and welcome to the show.
Sue, there is no place I'd rather be than right here, right now. So thanks for having me on.
Fabulous. I want to start off our conversation as we often do, and that is by having you share a little bit more about yourself in a creative way. That is through you describing your ideal motivational candle. So if you were to describe that, what color is it and what would be the quote on your candle?
One thing that I'm really big on, Sue, is the color orange and staying on brand. So my color of my candle is definitely going to be orange, just because the whole EOFire brand is kind of built around that flame, that ignition, igniting your passion, so to speak. So that would be the color of the flame. And I'll say it would smell like a barbecue. I've always loved that smell, and I think that that's kind of the scent that it would give off as it was wafting. Now, to the quote that you asked for that's inscribed upon this wonderful candle, it's from my favorite entrepreneur of old. I actually just finished reading his absolutely incredible biography, Albert Einstein. And his quote is, "Try not to become a person of success, but rather a person of value." And so as I saw that candle burning, it would really burn those words into my mind, because I believe if we put value first, we're always going to be successful in the end.
I agree. Chasing value and being important versus following money or trying to gain prosperity in that way, but gaining through value, I totally agree with you.
Yay.
So I want to ground everybody. I'm not sure all of our listeners will totally understand just by the description that I gave in the beginning about what the Freedom Journal is. So what I'd like to do is start out by you describing again in a little more detail what the Freedom Journal is all about.
Absolutely. I mean, I started 4 years ago interviewing successful entrepreneurs, Sue, and now I'm over 1,400 interviews in the bank, which is still even crazy for me to think about. But the reality is I had a lot of my listeners, Fire Nation, they were coming to me and saying, "John, you're interviewing successful entrepreneurs every single day. Like, what is their most common trait that's making them a success? Like, what's their secret sauce? Like, what is, that shortcut, so to speak?" And I never had an answer for them for the longest time. I would always just say, like, these people work hard. Like, that's the one commonality. And that is the truth. And that will continue to be the truth for sure. But really digging a little bit deeper, I realized all of my guests on EOFire who are successful and inspiring entrepreneurs, they know how to set and accomplish goals. And those listeners of mine, they struggle with that very thing, setting and accomplishing goals. So I said, how can I kind of bridge that gap? Like, how can I create that solution that so many people need out there? And that's where the idea for the Freedom Journal came to me. And I didn't just want to make it into like an app or a PDF or in the cloud. Like, I wanted to make it something real. Just like your candle, Sue, that you can hold and that you can see burning. There's something that's just powerful of that physical product and just that physical presence. And I wanted the Freedom Journal to have that component as well. So, I spent a lot of time, energy, and effort. I sourced the materials. I got a lot of great people working with me on the team who had been there and done that before. And we just found what turned out to be the great faux leather that I wanted for that look, gold embossed leaf shelves. And we did all of the different things to turn the Freedom Journal into something that you can be proud of, that whether it was on your desk, your nightstand, taking it out at a coffee shop, we turned it into this beautiful, beautiful physical product. But now that's just, on the outside of it. The inside, I spent over a year constructing what I knew was going to be that solution that people needed in setting and accomplishing their goals. And that was, number one, they needed to know how to set a SMART goal. So we teach you in the Freedom Journal how to set that specific, measurable, attainable, relevant, and time-bound goal. And then we move into 100 days in this very unique step-by-step process where you will be accomplishing that SMART goal every single day. We have daily tasks, nightly recaps. Every 10 days, Sue, we're doing a 10-day sprint. So you're accomplishing micro goals along the way. So you're getting that momentum going and you're having that sense of accomplishment. Then every 25 days, we're doing what's called the quarterly review, where we're looking back and saying, what worked, what didn't? How can I amplify what worked? How can I change what didn't? And by the end of those 100 days, you will have accomplished your number one goal. And we've now had thousands and thousands of people completed. In fact, we're over 13,000 Freedom Journals sold to date. And it's just exciting to see what people can do when they sit down and they commit to accomplishing that number one goal. What's on the other side of that rainbow? And that's what's now exciting to say.
Absolutely. And heads up, Gift Biz listeners, now you understand exactly why I wanted to have John on the show. How many of you are sitting there wanting to turn your hobby into a business, or have started but you really haven't committed 100%, or you're just not exactly sure which way you're going because possibly you haven't truly defined your goal into being a SMART goal? This is exactly why I wanted, number one, have John talk about this and also introduce you to the Freedom Journal, because I know there are so many of you out there who can be helped with this. First, John, I want to tell you that it's absolutely beautiful. I'm looking at it on my desk right now, and just the presence. I hear your passion when you're describing the Freedom Journal, just in terms of how beautiful it is, but it sets up the fact that the goal, the single goal that you're driving for through the Freedom Journal process, is a high quality goal. You're setting up something that's super important to either you personally or your business, and it's demonstrated, as you were saying, just in the physical presence of the journal. And then going through it, there's a lot of room. Obviously, everyone has to define their own path, in terms of their goals and what they're trying to do. How did you create the contents of the journal and know that was going to lead so many people to success?
Well, one thing that I really realized looking at my journey, Sue, is that it really took one big domino for me to knock over, for me to have all the success that I've had since. So I've grown EOFire in just 4 years into a 7-figure business, into a podcast that has millions of downloads a month. Like this upcoming month, we're going to have over 1.3 million downloads total for just the month of July here. And it's a business that's growing as far as with emails and social media and all of these things. But all of that, everything that you see, came from me initially knocking over one big domino. And that one big domino was launching my podcast. If I had never set the goal to launch EOFire back in September of 2012, nothing that I've accomplished since then would have been accomplished. Nothing would have been possible. It was that initial domino that I knocked over. So I looked back at my journey. I said, wow, like how valuable was it that I sat down and I dedicated my focus, my energy, my bandwidth into just accomplishing one goal, launching a daily podcast. That was it. No other distractions happened. And then when I accomplished that goal, other opportunities started to open before me. Just like when you knock over that one big domino, those other dominoes that are behind it can now have the opportunity to get knocked over as well. So many people try to just like knock everything over at once. Say, let me just do everything. Like quick example with podcasting, everybody freaks out because they're saying, John, like my website's not perfect. I can't launch my podcast yet. And my answer is always, nobody's going to care that your website's not perfect, because your podcast doesn't mean that when you launch it, you're opening up this floodgates to your website. That takes months and months of building an audience that matters. So launch your podcast, find your voice, knock over that one big domino, and then tackle those other dominoes behind it one step at a time.
It's a really good point, because you're talking about, again, providing value. If you're providing value, people aren't going to care if everything isn't in line and perfect, because you're giving your customer, listener, what they're needing at the time. Your story, John, when you started EOFire, you didn't know if it was going to be successful or not. You were taking a chance because I know a little bit of your past. There were other things you tried first. Are you saying you pick one thing and you just go all in on that one thing to see if that's going to be it? And if it's not, you give it enough time and then you move on if for some reason it's not accomplishing what you're looking for?
So what's the worst thing that we can do? We cannot find out soon enough that what we're doing is the wrong thing. And so we let weeks and months and sometimes even years for people go by before they're like, man, it's kind of now dawning on me that this really isn't what I should be focusing on, that this isn't my thing of magic. Why not go all in? Like, why not just double down on that thing and find out quickly if this is for you or not? By doing a daily podcast, you better believe that I was going to find out real quick if that was going to work for me or not. And guess what? I found out that it worked for me. But if I had found out that it wasn't going to work for me, better sooner than later, because our most valuable commodity that we have as entrepreneurs is time. And Sue, we need to protect time like it is the most precious asset that it actually is. And that is so important to me. Even as I progress further as an entrepreneur, I am always protecting my time. So when I have an idea, I go all in on that, and I'm just like, let me just put the pedal to the metal. Let me see if this is something that's going to work. If it's not, fine. Now I have time to try something else. But going all in allows you to do that.
So Gift Biz listeners, go all in, and most importantly, you get started. And is it going to be 100% perfect right away? No, but if you are passionate about what you're trying to do, your number one goal, you've got to take action, get started. And you guys, guess what? If it doesn't work, that does not mean you're a failure. That means that you need to adjust your plan. Maybe it's just not quite the right match with your audience. Maybe it's a product that just needs a little bit more tweaking. But you're never going to know unless you take action and unless you try. And I know so many people, we all run into people. They're saying, I'm going to write that book, or I'm going to open a shop one day. Well, why keep saying it's in the future? Do it now. As John's saying, it all comes back to time. And as the years progress, we all know time gets more limited. So take action now. John, how did you figure out the way to create the Freedom Journal to be different than other types of things that are out there? Lots of people talk about accomplishing goals. There's books, there's audio, there's talks. What did you do to define and create how the Freedom Journal was going to be different?
So the biggest thing looking back on my journey that I realized was the reason for my success in accomplishing these big goals, launching EOFire and then launching Podcaster's Paradise and then even launching the Freedom Journal. Like a quick little side story, like I used the Freedom Journal to launch the Freedom Journal to the public. So, that's something that I wanted to make sure worked before I actually did launch it to the public. And what I really realized is that there's a lot of things that are out there about goals because goals are so important. Nobody's going to disagree with that fact. It's just plain and simple. But one thing that I saw was that with everything that was going on, there was just really no major focus on a time-bound feature of that. Like a lot of people are saying, you have to wake up every single morning, write down your goals, put your perfect day down. Like all of these things work. And for me, like I was a consumer of this great journal called the 5-Minute Journal. When I would wake up every morning, I would write in the journal, and I would really enjoy that. And it would make me more productive as a person. But that never ends. It's like you finish, you fill out that book, and then you start the other one. And I said, well, this is a great tool, but I know that my success has relied on putting actual time blocks and time stamps and time boundedness to whatever I was going to do, whether that was intraday when I'm using the Pomodoro method to work 53 minutes on one task with a 7-minute enforced break before I do anything else. And so I kind of take that distraction out, or whether I'm doing a more focused long-term weeks or month project, like the Freedom Journal was in effect when I was creating that, like EOFire was when I was launching that, like Podcaster's Paradise was when I was launching that. And so for me, the time-bound aspect was something that was really missing in a lot of the tools that were out there. And I just knew from my experience with those things that I just mentioned, it was always around 3 or 4 months that it was taking for me to really launch something meaningful. So I said, you know what? I just like the round number of 100. I can break it down into 10-day sprints, 4 25-day quote-unquote quarterly reviews. And it's just going to be a nice, simple, unique step-by-step process that sounds right to me.
Right. And if you break things up into smaller chunks, it doesn't seem so intimidating. Your goal, when you look at the finish line, can be so huge it almost seems unattainable. But if you break it into little chunks, which is what you're doing through the Freedom Journal, it seems a lot easier and a lot more tackleable, if you will.
Yes, tackleable. That's my favorite word.
So Gift Biz listeners, did you hear how quickly, I was asking John, what is the uniqueness about the book? What is the difference? Did you hear how fast he came up with it? He knew that to create something that was going to be unique and different, and I'm talking to you guys about this because I want you to think about this for your products, your shops. How quickly can you answer that question? What is it that's different about you? What makes someone want to come and see you? Maybe it's your product, maybe it's you as a person, whatever it is, what is your difference? This is why John is so successful. Besides the fact that the Freedom Journal is gorgeous, it is an already proven technique that he has created based on observations in himself of what has made him successful. And John, so fast too. I mean, your rise in terms of success of the podcast has been crazy in terms of the speed. And I would say it's because of the uniqueness of the podcast first, because you're the first one who ever did a 7-day-a-week podcast. And now the Freedom Journal, same thing, because it's time-bound.
Absolutely. And I think it's so important when we as entrepreneurs, no matter what industry, no matter what niche we're in, what is it that makes us stand out? Like, what makes us different? And I always kind of refer to when I'm like on stage or just like sharing this with my mentees, what's your UVD? What's that unique value distinguisher? And that's 3 separate things: unique, value, and distinguisher. And for me, like, what's unique about EOFire? Well, it was that 7-day-a-week podcast, just like you mentioned. Well, what was the value of it? Well, I was bringing on successful entrepreneurs, having them share their stories, their wins, their losses, their lessons learned, etc. And what was that distinguisher? Well, a distinguisher of EOFire was it's a formatted show. So when you press play, you know that you're going to hear a successful entrepreneur share their worst moment and lessons learned, their aha moment, and how they turned that idea into success. And then, of course, our lightning round of 6 questions. Like, those are things that make up every EOFire show from episode 1 to episode 1401. And it will always be that way because that's the formula that my audience has come to love, because there's great value in a short amount of time.
And any of you who have not listened to Entrepreneur on Fire, also known as EOFire, I absolutely recommend you go over and check that out.
Thank you.
I'm going to turn this around on you a little bit, John, now. Creating the Freedom Journal. We're talking about how successful you've been both in the podcast and the Freedom Journal. What was the biggest hurdle that you had to overcome, that most difficult point? And yes, make it a story, as you always say, with the Freedom Journal.
So with the Freedom Journal, I had never actually sat down and written a physical book that was going to be published. I mean, back in 2013, I sat down over one weekend and I wrote an ebook podcast launch. And, a lot of people will point to that as my first book, but that was really just kind of me sitting down and just kind of like writing basically a long email to a potential podcaster. That's kind of more of what that was. So the Freedom Journal was an actual book, meaning that, it had sections, it had actual topics, it had focuses, and it had different areas of accomplishments that I wanted within that. And so I said, how can I actually piece this together? It was kind of like walking into a car shop and just seeing a car completely disassembled and saying, okay, it's my job to put all these pieces back and make this into a car that's going to drive for somebody, and not even being a mechanic. And that was me, because I had never done that before. So it was a process. And I can definitely tell you, I hit many walls. I hit many quote unquote writer's block. Some people believe in that, some people don't, but I definitely had times and days that I struggled to even put one word down on paper. For me, what always pulled me out of it was having the mentors around me. Like, I went to people who had successfully done similar things as I did, and I interviewed them. That's kind of one great thing about having a podcast. I had them on my show and I asked them questions that I wanted to know the answers to. I paid them to be my mentors. And that value exchange was incredible, because I would have just remained stuck forever. Like, a lot of people will look at mentors and they'll say, wow, like I could never pay that much money, or I could never afford that mentor. A lot of times I say, how could you not afford that mentor? I mean, you'll be exactly where you are a year from now if you do nothing. But with a mentor, you can be where you want to be in a year, and that's priceless. And that was when I first launched EOFire. I brought in a mentor, Jamie Tardy of The Eventual Millionaire, and she's the reason why I was able to become successful so fast, because she had been there, done that, and I got to learn from her mistakes, and I got to soak all of that in. So the biggest struggle that I definitely faced and I had to accomplish and overcome with the Freedom Journal was just the actual putting together the physical product, because I had never done that before. Whenever we're doing something new, it's scary. And whenever something's scary, we have resistance to it. Stephen Pressfield would say, like, we resist. We're sitting there, we're typing, and then we look to our right and we see our white shoe has a little black smudge on it, and we just have to clean that shoe before we get back to our work, because anything but doing the work.
Absolutely. I love the fact that we're talking about this, because we've been talking about how successful you are all the time and seeing success in so many things you're touching, but there are always challenges and there's always things that you need to overcome. And what you're talking about is facing those challenges and having support, whether it's paid, as you're saying, or just someone who really believes in you and is behind you, rallying for you. Some days things might not look like they're going to work out, and then the next day, you just keep driving towards it, and then all of a sudden you're in the groove again. John, I know you don't have a lot of time, and I'm getting this last question in because I am just dying to know the answer here. I'd like to present you with a virtual gift. It's a magical box containing unlimited possibilities for your future. This is your dream or your goal of almost unreachable heights that you would wish to obtain. Please accept this gift and open it in our presence. What is inside your box?
So I've accepted this gift. Thank you so much, Sue, for this incredibly kind gift. And what's inside is the ripple effects. And if I can expound upon that, what I mean by the ripple effect is every time I launch a podcast, every single day, my hope is that it's going to inspire somebody to do something. But the real hope that I have that's even deeper than that is that that person who I've inspired to now go and do that thing in the future inspires somebody else to do that thing who never would have heard of EOFire or John Lee Dumas or still maybe never will, but was inspired by somebody that I was able to inspire, that ripple effect. So my box has the ripple effect, which is reaching tens of thousands of millions of potentially billions of people around the world through my podcast. Not directly, but 3, 4, 5, 6 degrees of separation.
Fabulous. And one final message, John, from you to my listeners.
If you want to be, do. I wanted to be a podcaster back in the day. I had never podcasted before. I didn't know what I was doing, but I just had the podcast. It was that simple. So don't expect you're going to be good, and don't be frustrated about being bad when you start that thing. That is called life, and just embrace it.
Love that. John, thank you so much for being on today. I so appreciate it. I'm so looking forward to what you do next, because I know there's something else in the works. I'm quite sure of that. And may your candle always burn bright.
Thanks, Sue.
Where are you in your business building journey? Whether you're just starting out or already running a business and you want to know you're set up for success, find out by taking the Gift Biz Quiz. Access the quiz from your computer at bit.ly/giftbizquiz or from your phone by texting Gift Biz Quiz to 44222. Thanks for listening, and be sure to join us for the next episode.
Today's show is sponsored by the Ribbon Print Company. Looking for a new income source for your gift business? Customization is more popular now than ever. Brand your product with your logo, or print a Happy Birthday Jessica ribbon to add to a gift right at checkout. It's all done right in your shop or craft studio in seconds. Check out theribbonprintcompany.com for more information.
After you listen to the show, if you like what you're hearing, make sure to jump over and subscribe to the show on iTunes. That way you'll automatically get the newest episodes when they go live. And thank you to those who have already left a rating and review. By subscribing, rating, and reviewing, you help to increase the visibility of Gift Biz Unwrapped. It's a great way to pay it forward to help others with their entrepreneurial journey as well.